Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Welcome to the Daily Cash Flow. My name is George Robson.
I'm Peter Siegel.
Peter, out of all the industries that you could have gone into, why did you personally want to go into real estate?
Well, I knew that when I was a young kid that I wanted to get into business. I mean, business in my house growing up with my family, we were always talking about it at the dinner table. My grandfather was an entrepreneur, my dad was an entrepreneur, my brothers are all entrepreneurs, my mom's an entrepreneur. Very creative, independent thinking, business-minded people that I was around at a young age. So I was part of those conversations and I was learning a lot about business. So I knew I wanted to get into business. I think real estate came about for a couple of reasons. One was, I'll always remember watching late night infomercials. There was a guy named Carlton Sheets who had a lot of infomercials running at 3 a.m. about, he wanted to sell you these cassette tape courses about how to invest in real estate, how to buy property without any of your own money, and getting mortgage debt and leveraging up and renting out properties, fixing up properties, and how to just keep going with that for a long time and build up this great wealth. And I was enamored with those infomercials. I never bought one of them, but I watched them all the time. I watched every version of them. I watched, he had like 7 or 8 different ones that would run all the time, and I would almost look forward to watching those more than like TV shows. And I was also noticing as I was getting older that the wealthy people that I was meeting, it wasn't many. I mean, I lived in a quiet suburban town in Pennsylvania. It wasn't a real hotbed for industry titans, but the wealthy and successful people I seemed to be meeting were parents of kids that maybe I went to camp with or were friends with from school or something like that, and they were all real estate people. And my dad loved to play golf, and I loved to play golf with my dad, and those times when I would play golf with my dad as a kid, the other people that would join us in our foursome, some of them would be real estate people, and I get to learn a little bit about real estate from playing golf with my dad, and so I had this idea, true or not, I had this idea as a kid that the most successful people that I could think of were the real estate people. So I thought that maybe if I was going to get into business, that the real estate business would be the right choice for me. Turns out that it was, and I don't regret any of it, and I love what I do.
Was there a reason that you eventually went into multifamily as opposed to other areas of real estate? Did you try other areas out before?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. I mean, so I've invested and owned many different types of real estate in my career. It started with small apartment houses. I grew to owning small retail strip centers. I've had office buildings. I've had mixed use buildings. I've had industrial and storage and warehouse properties. So experience has allowed me to refocus the lens later on in my career towards exclusively just being in multifamily. But really, as I was investing in all of these different property types and managing all these different property types, I could see inherently that there were fundamental differences in multifamily apartment buildings as compared to retail and office. I mean, retail and office for me, it was a tougher journey to embark on. I mean, prospective tenants had to have a high degree of capitalization, which meant they had to either be regional or national tenants as opposed to local tenants. Local tenants were small businesses that were mom and pop operators, didn't have a lot of money for build out, didn't have a lot of money for security deposit, couldn't pay market rates for rent. So I found that different property types were addressing different parts of the market in their own unique way. With multifamily, you're talking about people renting apartments and they live in your apartments, it's their home. And what I quickly saw was that people are less likely to negotiate on their home and they are more likely to give up or negotiate or modify on their office or their store. So if you're a small business owner and you wanted to give a go at a business concept that you had, and maybe times got tough, what I saw was that during those tough times, people would not pay rent on their store or give back the keys to their store to the landlord, and instead work from home. I mean, we've been talking a lot about work from home recently for current events and different reasons than what I'm referring to, because I'm now referring to 25 years ago working from home. But for example, I would have a hair salon that went through a tough time, and the salon owner would give me back the keys to the store, and she'd do hair service out of her apartment or go see clients at their homes. And she was still in business, she just didn't have a storefront that she was paying for. I saw business owners making those types of decisions. Hey, I can work from my home, cell phone, computer, internet. I mean, it allowed people to feel better about not signing a lease at a store. So already, if you own a small commercial strip center, your market share is dwindling because
there's a high reliability there then.
Yeah, it's a tough sell to find the right tenant. And with commercial property, you want credit-worthy tenants. These are tenants that have actual credit ratings. So for example, you would prefer to have a Starbucks open up a coffee shop in your building versus a local organic homegrown coffee shop, because the Starbucks was better funded, could sign a real lease, could give you a real security deposit, could pay market rent, they could do a real build out. Whereas if you went with like a local operator that was opening up their first store, I mean, there's
has less infrastructure to
less
support.
infrastructure,
Yeah.
less capital. So as a landlord, as an owner, you're looking for more money, more credit. Same thing with office space. I mean, offices are certainly having a very difficult time right now. And I'm thrilled personally that myself, my family, and my investors are not in office and retail properties or in multifamily. Office having a tough time, retail's getting smashed. A lot of the industrial and warehousing sector is not succeeding. Some of it really is, so you have to pick and choose where you are with your warehouse and your industrial properties. By and large, all the time, without fail, apartment buildings persevered through all of it. They persevered through the 2008 financial crisis. They persevered in our area where we operate in the Northeast Corridor when Hurricane Sandy hit. Apartment buildings were the last to have any economic damage and the quickest to rebound from whatever damage may have occurred. And now here we are in the COVID world, and you see retail getting smashed, offices getting smashed, lots of these property types getting smashed, strip centers, malls, forget it, right? Apartment buildings, people are able to stay put, they're able to pay rent. Now look, I know this was a difficult time for a lot of people in a lot of different places. I'm not saying that people aren't suffering through COVID. What I'm saying is that the profile of multifamily is such that it has a longer track record of success through difficult times because people are slower to give up on their homes than they are in any other type of obligation that they have. They'll give up think about it, they'll give up their car, their phone, their office, their storefront, their whatever they have that's extra in a tough time, they're gonna give that stuff up first. So,
but shelter is always going to be necessary.
Yeah, people need to live somewhere. And if you provide a great product at a fair price, your buildings are going to be full, you're going to collect rent if you underwrite correctly and if you know how to screen for tenants and applicants that want to come in. So I saw that at a young age as well. I saw that apartment buildings were always full while my strip centers, I had vacancies, I had to find a Subway sandwich shop franchise, or I had to find a shoe repair person, or I had to find a Kinko's or someone like that. So I had to find these regional or national tenants to come in and sign leases at my commercial space, whereas my apartments were always leased. They were always rented. They were always sending in payments. So I saw early on that apartment assets were performing differently than retail, commercial, industrial, and office. So I chose to expand my presence in apartment buildings.
So when you finally went all in with multifamily,
Yeah.
was there a tipping point where you felt like, I've made it, I'm successful, this is it? Or was it more of an incremental over time building up?
Definitely incremental. I mean, nothing in real estate is overnight. Nothing in real estate is fast and furious. I mean, everything takes time. Real estate takes time. I mean, look, it's land and buildings. So if you have time, real estate's good for you because real estate takes time. But nothing in real estate happens overnight. And in my case, it was building by building. opportunity by opportunity. I just took care of the first opportunity, got it all settled, moved it over here so that it was easy to manage on a recurring basis, went to the next one, finished that one, tied a bow around it, moved it over here so that it was easy to manage on a recurring basis, went to the next one, and so on and so forth. You wake up one day many years later and you've got a bunch of buildings that are cash flowing because you managed your affairs right and you took care of managing your real estate investment right. And if you can do that, you'll be one of the lucky ones, because it's a great business to be in if you have the patience and longevity for it.
So would I be right in assuming, Peter, that this is why you recommend people to invest with a local market expert rather than do it on their own, because it's not an overnight success story.
It's not. And look, if you're going to make real estate investment your full-time job, your career, and you don't have another company or business or things to manage and worry about, you'll become the local market expert eventually. You got to start somewhere. But if you've got a business and you're already successful and you're making money and you don't have access to real estate investing, you're going to need a local market expert. Don't just do it with anybody. You need to have someone who's been in business for a while, that knows how to manage assets through all the different cycles, that has an infrastructure for management and construction and leasing and maintenance and repairs. I mean, you want to put your money with someone that invites you to invest with them, but you got to put your money with someone who knows what they're doing. Otherwise, it is all on you to go figure that out yourself. And it's tough to figure it out yourself if you've already got a business that you're in. Right. So I tell people all the time who tell me that they are interested in getting involved in making real estate investments, they typically are thinking, they want to buy a duplex or a single family house in a college town and have the annual turnover of students be their tenant base for the duration of the ownership of their duplex. And I mean, you could do that, and I know people that do that, and they have a lot of stress and they have a lot of inefficiencies because they don't have a big portfolio of assets with a big team of people managing it. They've got to do it all themselves. So, but if you want to have access to great real estate opportunities, you have to know someone who's inviting you in to make an investment with them. So choose a local market expert for sure.
Right. So speaking of ownership, you've said before, it's not what you own, it's what you control.
Yeah, I believe that.
What do you mean by that? Can you clarify that a little bit?
So one of the other things I noticed when I was a kid about successful people and wealthy people that I came into contact with is that they had holding companies and they had LLC entities and they had S-corps and they had this very sexy, unique, complicated, it seemed complicated to me, structure of ownership entities for businesses and for investments and assets and limited partnerships and all these great things. And I never knew about them and I never was taught about them. And I made it a point to learn about all these things. And all successful and wealthy people have some sort of ownership structure where the entities that own their assets and their businesses are set up in such a way where the entities own the assets and the businesses. The individual controls the entity. So there's a bunch of different reasons to take advantage of these things. Everything from different tax structures and tax advantages to liability protections and shielding yourself individually from liabilities that occur at the business. So I was always fascinated with how successful people chose to own the investments and the assets that they would own. And I saw very quickly that it was controlling the entity that the key person was always tied into doing. It wasn't owning the asset themselves in their name. It was controlling the entity that owned the asset. So for example, in real estate, I have single asset entities that are LLCs take title to all of my real estate purchases. And I control those LLC entities. So I don't own the fee simple interest in the real estate. I own the LLC memberships of the LLC that owns the fee simple interest in the real estate. And by owning the LLC memberships, I control the LLC. And by controlling the LLC, I control the real estate. So it's not what you own, it's what you control. And by taking advantage of LLCs to own real estate, I shield myself from liability. If there's, God forbid, a slip and fall and someone injures themselves on the property, the insurance on the property covers that. That doesn't flow to me individually, and I don't have a tenant coming after me, suing me as an individual.
Yeah.
Business owners do that.
Ways of
Wealthy people do that. Successful people do that. And there's different ownership structures that that you can choose depending on what your business is. For me, in real estate, I enjoy the LLC structure. Some people use limited partnerships where you're the general partner and the others are the limited partners. The general partner controls the partnership. Some people use S corps. More often now, a long time ago, C corps were the more popular one.
Yeah.
But
so there's a lot of variation in terms
of
how to implement that.
You have to check with your accountant and your tax professional and your legal professional if you're going to create an ownership structure for an investment or an asset or a business. So you'll do that. I'm not giving you ownership advice. I'm really trying to point to the fact that it's not what you own, it's what you control. By virtue of controlling an entity, you can control cash flow, you can control balance sheet issues, you can control major voting issues, you can control the direction an asset or an investment or a business is going to take just by controlling the entity that owns that asset.
So Peter, there's this phrase that you're the average of the 5 people you're closest to.
Yeah, it's true.
How do you choose the 5 people you're closest to? Are there certain qualities that you look for when you're looking for friends and relationships?
Yeah, I think for me, in my life, I mean, I really value my relationships with my family, my friends, all the different people from the different parts of my life, school, business. I mean, everyone's so important to me, and I love all these relationships that I've formed. And I think the thing that I notice in all of these people that I've maintained relationships with over the long term is 5 or 6 key things that everyone, I think, has to have in order for me to be a part of the relationship with them. So they have to be easy to be around. They have to be funny, fun-loving. There has to be laughter. They have to be trustworthy and reliable, right? They have to have a high degree of empathy. And they have to make me feel good with warmth and kindness. So I think a combination of all of those things are really key to my relationships, and I try and seek those characteristics out myself, and I hope that I'm those things for the people in my life. But I find that if you have a combination of those 5 or 6 things, that you're going to be a person that's able to have business relationships, personal relationships, career relationships, and you're not going to suffer from not being able to have a high quality of 5 people around you to average from. I mean, you know, for me, I want to be, if I'm in your life, I want to be the person with the highest score amongst the 5 that's bringing your average up. I mean, I want to be able to add value to you. So, I hope that I do for the people in my life. So I think that for those that are seeking some sort of guidance in where to go and what to do, I think start with yourself and be a good person to be around and a fun person to be around and be reliable and be empathetic and trustworthy. And I think you're going to find that the quality of your relationships increases significantly.
So do you think, are those 6 things enough for success in anything? Like if now we're moving on to business.
I'm not saying be funny and loyal and boom, you're going to be a success in life and in business and with your career. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But you need people in your life. You need relationships. And so you got to start with yourself to form the relationships. Now, you want to be successful in business? Once you've got those 5 or 6 things down and you've got some good relationships in your life, I think the single biggest skill that I see lacking, especially with young people today who want to be successful in business and in their careers, is communications and sales skills. And it's a bummer because schools, high school and college, doesn't teach communications and sales. They teach a lot of the traditional business and career content stuff, but they don't teach eye contact and body language, and they don't teach sales and marketing and presentation. They don't teach you how to get up in front of a mic, in front of a room of 100 or 200 people and make a pitch and not sound like an idiot. They don't teach that, and that's a big thing that holds a lot of young people back, and even older people now. I mean, it's amazing. You can do anything that you want in life, but you can't be successful at it unless you know how to do business. So if you're into something super obscure, you know, if you want to be a distiller of a super rare, I see this a lot in the arts where
super niche markets.
yeah, if you're in a niche market, or if you're an artist, or if you're something that it's very tough to have commercial success in. You could have commercial success in it if you know how to do business. And what I mean when I say if you know how to do business is if you know how to sell. You can do anything if you can sell. If you're selling yourself, a product, a service, deal terms on an investment that you're putting together, a merger and an acquisition for a company that you may want to buy, or maybe you're being acquired by a company, whatever it is, you got to be able to sell.
How do you think of sales? And like when you hear that word selling or sales, what comes to mind for you?
The best salespeople I've ever known in my life to this day are people in retail. People in retail get human beings, right? They have those 5 or 6 things that we talked about a moment ago.
Building.
They know how to cultivate relationships, they know how to read a room, they know how to feel you out, they know how to give you what you want, and they know how to ask for what they want. People in retail are the smartest people I've ever met. And in addition to retailers, I think that performing artists and people like actors and musicians and poets and people who are used to getting up in front of large groups of people and speaking publicly, the same way that they're good at politics, people that are good with communicating are also really good at business. So I encourage everybody to become really good at communicating, at eye contact, at delivering positive body language, because no one wants to be around you if you're giving a presentation where you're huddled in and you're looking down and you're not making eye contact and your shoulders are curled in, right? You want to be up, you want to be facing your audience, your viewer, your listener. You want to keep them engaged. You want them to ask a question. You want to be able to deliver them information that excites them, and you want to be able to deliver them a product or service that excites them. So you can do that if you know how to communicate, if you know how to market yourself, and if you have confidence. The way you get confidence is you get good at shit. And the way you get good at shit is you do the same thing over and over and over and over again until it becomes a habit. I mean, there was a guy named Maxwell Maltz back in the 60s who was a plastic surgeon who was the first to notice that habits get formed in 21 days. And he wrote about it, and it was a concept that was very, very popular and took off like wildfire back then. And what Maltz was saying was, don't give up, repeat the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and on or around the 21st day, what you've been repeating now becomes part of your DNA, and it's a habit now, and you're just going to do it. So get good at something, repeat it until it becomes a habit, then move on to the next thing, get good at that, repeat it until it becomes a habit, and move on to the next thing. And you get good at shit, and when you get good at shit, you get confident, and when you get confident, you can look at someone and have a conversation with them. You can look at a customer and speak with them intelligently about your product or service. You can engage a room full of people about your product or service, or yourself. So selling is the number one key thing that you need in life to be good at business. Once you're a good person, you have good relationships, learn how to sell, be confident, and the way you get confidence is by building up success and getting good at stuff, and you just got to repeat it over and over and over again. Our biggest weakness as a species is that we give up so easily on things. And if you just stop with the giving up and continue to stand up, dust yourself off, and do it again, do it again, do it again, until you get good at it and perfect it, and it becomes that habit, then it gives you the confidence, and you can go on and conquer the next thing.
How did you get good at selling? Where did you get that inspiration?
Man, I told you
training?
before, man. I grew up the grandson and son of a retailer and brothers of entrepreneurs. I mean, salesmanship and the ability to sell in my family was like eating baby food out of a bottle. I mean, it was stuff that I did very early on in my life, and I learned how to do by watching my grandfather, my father, and my brothers.
So it is what you just said, which is just doing it over and over and over again. And
if you are the sum of the 5 people that are closest to you, make sure that you have people that are close to you that are really talented in some of these areas.
They'll elevate your skills in that way.
They'll elevate your skills. I mean, if you're around people who are introverts, who are depressed, who don't have self-confidence, you're not going to be able to pick up on any of those cues. You want to be around people who are energizing you, who are creating energy with you, who are inspiring you, and if you can surround yourself with those 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 people or whatever it is that are all of a really high quality that can teach you these things without teaching you, but
right, just by proximity.
Yeah, by osmosis. you're gonna pick up on it. That's how I did when I was a kid. I mean, I was very young. My grandfather was a genius. He was a merchant. I mean, he was a retailer. I mean, people that were merchants and retailers knew how to sell to customers. They knew how to get a customer. They knew how to have a conversation with them. They knew how to be genuine with them. I mean, my father was a genius at this. My brothers are geniuses with this. It's amazing. I mean, I'm the youngest in my family by far. So when I was really, really young, they were all way older and doing these things in a meaningful way. So I was lapping it up at 4 and 5 years old, and they were all in their teens, and it was amazing to watch. I mean, I gained that skill myself very, very early on. But for those of you out there who don't come from a family of entrepreneurs or retailers or merchants, I suggest you go find them in any one of a number of different places, locally, network groups, trade associations, whatever it may be, and really spend time and see if you can identify what it is in people that are great at communicating, they're great at selling, that are great at displaying confidence. I mean, these are things that you need to have if you're going to be successful in business. Learn how to sell.
All right, well, I got 2 Zest quests for you, Peter.
Just two.
Just two. I'm doing it light today. First one is, what's an insult that you've taken as a compliment?
An insult that I've taken as a compliment.
Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to be told that I wasn't serious enough. I have to take things more seriously. And the insult there was that I needed to get my shit together. I needed to grow up. I needed to take whatever I was doing more seriously. And I wasn't the best student in school until I decided and made the decision to become a better student. I wasn't taking it seriously. I was having more fun than achieving high grades. That was the insult, and the compliment is that you're light, you're funny, you're jovial, you laugh a lot, you're warm. And I was able to cultivate a lot of relationships by focusing more on the fun than on the serious. Right. I think so. That was a double-edged sword for me growing up, for sure. Good question, though. I wasn't expecting that, George.
That centers back to that. Those qualities that you look for in the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Being light and being easy to be around and all those things.
I hope that I was, for all my friends that I've known for a long time, I hope that you found me easy to be around. I can think of a few that don't. But
we'll edit those out if we get those responses in the mail. And the last question I have is, what's a purchase of $100 or less that you've made in, let's say, the last 3 months that has improved your life?
Reading glasses. I got 1.5x glasses. I'm 52. My wife told me when I was 40 that I needed to get them, and I avoided it. And I came up with fake phone calls that I had to run out and take. And there was no one on the phone. I just had to leave the eyeglass store, and she was like, "Wait, we're getting you glasses." I'm like, "No, I'm on the phone. We'll do it later."
Was that a hurdle to commit to reading glasses?
Not really. I mean,
it was just something you put off.
About 8 months ago, I just couldn't see shit at my computer. I was just, it was tough. I mean, I was doing this for a while, and then I couldn't see anything. Yeah. So I got some 1.5Xs, and I can see.
If you have the right.
I can see.
If you have the right tools, everything becomes better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate
Thanks, George. Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next time.